So now the question that we all face is, having scaled back our more ambitious goals, how do we exit Afghanistan while achieving our more minimal objectives of counterterrorism after 10 years of sacrifice? And this, in turn, depends upon your answer to three other questions. The first of which is, will the Taliban engage in a good faith negotiation for a peace accord? And if they do, would they honor the terms? The second question is, will the Pakistanis allow them to do so? And the third, and in some sense the most difficult question, is whether NATO governments in London and Washington will have the skill as well as the patience to engage in a negotiation with the Taliban.
There is considerable room in principle for dealing in a positive way with the Pakistanis to help bring about a peace settlement in Afghanistan, if in part the Pakistani side were more coherent, easier to deal with, less internally divided, and rather less opaque. Now, none of this would matter if the second question, very briefly, is if Pakistan will actually survive. Obviously, if Pakistan doesn't survive, well, not merely is there nobody to negotiate with in Pakistan, but of course, the catastrophe for the region and for us, for our interests, will dwarf anything that could happen in Afghanistan. I mean, people talk about nuclear weapons, but long before you get that, you have an army of 500,000 men leaking every kind of weapon and expertise to terrorists. So, we have to keep focused, I think, on the idea that, bad as it is, keeping Pakistan together is nonetheless very, very important.
There was very, very strong support in my country, Canada, for this operation. Not simply because we had people who never came out of the Twin Towers, but because we have a strong military tradition, we have a strong sense of alliance solidarity. We have a clash of legitimacies. What we did was legitimate to us, illegitimate to the broad mass of the Pakistani population. That's problem one, and it's dogged us from the beginning. What did legitimacy rest on in Canada from about 2006 onwards? It rested on an exit date. So the way you maintain legitimacy sends a very strong message to your opponents.
The end game in Afghanistan, to me, has always been Al-Qaeda out, all the tribes in, and the neighbors on side. That's the basic bargain. It's not an Afghan army of 350,000 people that's going to run the country. It is a political settlement. The argument of the dominant military playmakers in Afghanistan remains to this day. We can't start talks until we've got our foot on their throats. We'll never get to the stage in Afghanistan where we've got our foot on their throats.